Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Kunja Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Giri-taṭeṣu Gopijana Vallabha Giri-taṭeṣu Jasodanandana Brajajanaranjana Jasodanandana Brajajanaranjana Jamana Tiravana Chari Jamuna Tiravana Chadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Giri-taṭeṣu Gopijana Vallabha Giri-taṭeṣu Jasodanandana Brajajanaranjana Jasodanandana Brajajanaranjana Jamana Tiravana Chari Jamana Tiravana Chari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayom Vishnupada Paramahamsa Tarasatasi Srimada's Divine Graces Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Gaura Premanandi. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're slowly plodding along with many descriptions of verses 8 through 11 from Canto 10, Chapter 35. This is obviously a celebrated section. Premananda shared with me it's her favorite section, or one of her favorite sections of the whole Bhagavatam. The Gopīs calling out, singing together, describing Krishna's activities. And so the section that we're going to be reading this morning is Jiva Goswami discussing this topic in Bhakti Sandarbha. And the reference is going to Canto 10, Chapter 2, which is a whole series of discussions between King Nimi, who's king of Videha, a great lineage, and the Navyogendras. And the Navyogendras are 9 exalted sons of Rishabdev who have achieved celebrated perfection of life. And I'm just going to read a little section. This is from chapter 20 of this, verse 20 of chapter 2. Just describes what's the background. Nimi, the king of Videha, asked the following 9 questions of the 9 Yogendras, the saintly sons of Rishabh. And they took turns answering these 9 questions. So the question we're going to be discussing is, what is the highest good? It starts at verse 30, because the other is an introduction to what's the questions. Verse 30, this is Nimi's question. What is the highest good? Here's the other 8 topics. Right after the section that we'll be discussing this morning comes the next topic. What are the religious principles, dharma, natural proclivities, swabhava, behavior, achara, speech, vakya, and onward symptoms, lakshana, of a Bhagavata, a Vaishnava devotee of the Lord? So you can match yourself up and see if you meet these criterion. And that's found starting at text 44 of this chapter. Next, number 3, what is the external energy of Vishnu, the Supreme Lord? That's the very beginning part of chapter 3, Canto 11. And the 4th question, how can one become disassociated from this Maya? That's a good question. Starting with text 17 of chapter 3. Number 5, what is the true identity of Brahman? Text 34 starts that discussion, chapter 3. What are the 3 types of karma? Namely, karma based on the enjoyment of the fruits of work, karma offered to the Supreme Lord, and naishkarmya. So chapter 3 starts with text 41. And the 7th question, what are the various pastimes of the various incarnations of God? Starts the beginning of chapter 4. And question number 8, what is the aim or destination of one who is against the Supreme Lord and devoid of bhakti? In other words, a non-devotee. So chapter 5 begins with that discussion. And the final question, what are the respective colors, forms, and names of the 4 Yuga avatars, the 4 incarnations of the Supreme Lord who appear in the 4 ages, and what is the process of worshiping each of them? So chapters 2 through 5 of Canto 11, and we're going to be hearing some discussion, Jiva Goswami, on the first question, what is the highest good? And it's going to start with text 39, which is what's the highest good section. And the relation of this chapter 35 of Canto 10 is, very simply put, the residents of Vrindavan are the topmost, and amongst them the Gopīs are the topmost, but it also goes to the queens are in this very exalted position of Uttama Adhikari. So those of us that like to read Prabhupada's books, we know there's Kanishta, Madhyama, Uttama, and one of the common definitions of Uttama is the Uttama sees everyone is engaged in Krishna's service except one person, themselves. And that's a little stretch because there's bad people. And how are those bad people engaged in Krishna service? So we'll hear the sage Sri Kavi, how he addresses this question. So text 39, this is the BBT translation. An intelligent person who has controlled his mind and conquered fear should give up all attachment to material objects, such as wife, family, and nation, and should wander freely without embarrassment, hearing and chanting the holy names of the Lord, the bearer of the chariot wheel. The holy names of Kṛṣṇa are all auspicious because they, the names, describe his transcendental birth and activities which he performs within this world for the salvation of the conditioned souls. Thus the holy names of the Lord are sung throughout the world. That is true. But again, describe, please, the devotee, considering which among his characteristics determine different levels of Uttama, Madhyama, and Kanishta. In answer, Havi says, text 45 of chapter 2, the most advanced devotees, that's the Uttama, sees the Supreme Lord, one's object of worship, within everything, and sees everything in the Supreme Lord's heart. So this is now, that's the topic that's being expanded, and it goes to the residents of Vrindavan have that quality. I'll read it again. The most advanced devotee sees the Supreme Lord, one's object of worship, within everything, and sees everything in the Supreme Lord's heart. Text 45. Here, the Mahabhagavata is described in terms of mental qualities, which are understood by external symptoms. These symptoms, produced by anuraga, were described earlier by Kavi, text 40. Quote, regulated with such devotion, chanting the name of his dear Kṛṣṇa, he develops prema. His heart melts, and he laughs loudly, weeps, wails, and sings. He dances like a madman without regard for the public. Unquote. He experiences only his cherished Lord in all conscious and unconscious matter, as described in the following. Text 41 translation. A person devoted only to the Lord should bow down to ether, fire, air, water, earth, the sun, and other luminaries, all living beings, all directions, the trees and other plants, the rivers, and oceans, seeing them as the body of Kṛṣṇa. That's Bhanu Swami's translation, it's a part. Here's the BBT translation of that text 41. A devotee should not see anything as being separate from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Kṛṣṇa. Ether, fire, air, water, earth, the sun, and other luminaries, all living beings, the directions, trees, and other plants, the rivers and oceans, whatever a devotee experiences, he should consider to be an expansion of Kṛṣṇa. Thus, seeing everything that exists within creation as the body of the Supreme Lord, Hari, the devotee should offer his sincere respects to the entire expansion of the Lord's body, unquote. He experiences all entities in the Lord, since the Lord is their shelter. All beings appear in the Lord's heart. This is the Uttama devotee. The Gopīs are described in this way. Now this is our verse for this morning. Quote, this is the Gopīs, one of their songs. Kṛṣṇa moves about the forest in the company of his friends who vividly chant the glories of his magnificent deeds. He thus appears as the most outstanding person, exhibiting his inexhaustible sweetness. When the cows wander onto the mountainsides and Kṛṣṇa calls out to them with the sound of his flute, the trees and creepers in the forest respond by becoming so luxuriant with fruits and flowers that they seem to be manifesting Kṛṣṇa, spread everywhere within their hearts. As their branches bend low with the weight, the filaments of their trunks and vines stand erect out of prema, and both the trees and the creepers shower sweet sap. Paragraph. The Uttama devotee sees his prema for the Lord in all entities, conscious and unconscious. The rest is the same. Therefore, he offers respect to all entities with devotion because he thinks that they are all devotees, as explained in text 40. Thus it is said, going back to chapter 21, quote, when the rivers hear the flute song of Kṛṣṇa, the flow of their currents is broken, and their waters are agitated out of desire, moving around in whirlpools, presenting offerings of lotus flowers with the arms of their waves. The rivers grasp Murari's lotus feet, covering them in their embrace. The queens also say, the queens, this is chapter 90 of Canto 10, where the solar eclipse in Kurukshetra and all 16,108 queens go to Kurukshetra. They see Kṛṣṇa, and they're recalling, they hear from Uddhava the exalted nature of the residents of Vrindavan, in particular the Gopīs, and so they also become mad just by hearing about the Gopīs. And they start speaking to the trees and speaking to this and that about the good fortune of the residents of Vrindavan. So here's one. They're speaking to a kukari bird. Oh, kukari bird, you are lamenting. Now it is night, and somewhere in this world our husband is asleep in a hiding place. But you are wide awake, O friend, unable to fall asleep. Is it that, like us, you have had your heart pierced to the core by the lotus-eyed Lord's munificent, playful, smiling glances? So they're attributing, could you turn it back on again? Thanks. They're attributing qualities of feelings of separation, feeling the Lord has glanced upon us, but now we don't know where He is, and so like that. They are not described as Brahmagyanis, that's the queens, or the Gopīs, these Uttama personalities. They are not described as Brahmagyanis, though it is said they see the Lord everywhere, since that jnana and the results of that jnana are despised by the devotees. And it is contrary to being a devotee, because then there would be no difference between the jiva and the Lord. As a Brahmagyani, it's all one people. Brahman is everywhere, so they're not Brahman is everywhere people. And seeing according to that knowledge. They're beyond Brahmagyan, and they're absorbed in wishing to be in service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the mood of service, not the mood of equality. This would contradict the position of an Uttama, expressed in the following description of Aikantiki Bhakti. This is now making reference to Kapila Dev's teachings. Canto 3, Chapter 29. That quality of bhakti beyond the gunas is that bhakti which is devoid of results other than bhakti and is unobstructed by other processes. Lakshanam bhakti yogasya nirgunasya hi uddharatam aikantiki avyahita bhakti purushottame. So we're hearing about the Uttama Bhakta from Jiva Goswami, and he's likening, or he's very explicitly indicating, the Gopis and the residents of Vrindavan are on that platform. That quality of bhakti beyond the gunas is that bhakti which is devoid of results other than bhakti and is unobstructed by other processes. Paragraph. Nor does the definition represent realization of a Lord without form, as this would contradict the highest positions summarized in the conclusion of this section. So chapter 2 ends. He who binds the lotus feet of the Lord by ropes of love, and he whose heart the Lord, destroyer of heaps of sin, does not leave, even if beckoned accidentally, is called the best of the devotees. And continuing, this is Bhakti Sandarbha, different section, Anucheda. He's still speaking about Sri Havi. Sri Havi gave the following reply to that question, 11.2.45. A person advanced in devotional service sees within everything the soul of all souls, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Kṛṣṇa. Consequently, he also sees the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead as the cause of all causes, and understands that all things are situated in him, unquote. By describing the symptoms of the devotee's heart and mind, how the devotees see others, this verse describes the nature of a great devotee of the Lord. The symptoms of a great devotee of the Lord are also described in the following words Canto 11.2.40. So this is a celebrated verse. I'll read it. When a person is actually advanced and takes pleasure in chanting the holy name of the Lord, who is very dear to him, he is agitated and loudly chants the holy name. He also laughs, cries, becomes agitated, and chants just like a madman, not caring for outsiders. So those who have read Chaitanya Charitamrita are very familiar with that verse. It comes in Adi-lila chapter 7, where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is invited to attend a gathering with the Mayavadi sannyasis, headed by Prakashananda Saraswati. And they, get right down to business and say, why do you carry on like this? You're not studying Vedanta, and instead you're singing and dancing with ordinary people. Sannyasis don't do that. And then Lord Chaitanya gives his detailed reply. He says, Ishwara Puri told me, he instructed me, you're not qualified to study Vedanta. You should just chant the holy name. So I started chanting the holy name, following the instruction of Ishwara Puri. And then something happened. These things started to happen. Ecstasy. And so I went to him and said, am I doing something wrong? This is what's happening when I chant Hare Krishna. And then Ishwara Puri, it's a long section where he says, oh, very good. Very good. And quotes different scriptures. Part of those scriptures are from this section. And he's confirming that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, according to Srimad Bhagavatam's teaching, is on the highest stage of bhakti. So please continue. That's the context. And the same verse is referred to by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur in relation to Haridas Thakur, found in Chaitanya Bhagavat. As you likely know, he wrote a verse-by-verse, really elevated commentary on Chaitanya Bhagavat, which is available in English. And here's the renderings. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu there's a verse in Chaitanya Bhagavat where Vrindavan Das Thakur speaks about Haridas going mad when chanting the holy name. And there's different places where that's described. So there are a couple of them. He gives the following English rendering of this verse as follows. By chanting the holy name of the Supreme Lord, one comes to the stage of love of Godhead. Then the devotee is fixed in his vow as an eternal servant of the Lord, and he gradually becomes very much attached to a particular name and form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As his heart melts with ecstatic love, he cries very loudly, or cries and shouts. Sometimes he sings and dances like a madman. He is indifferent to public opinion, unquote. So the Gopīs are like that. That's the message that we're hearing. They're on this Uttama stage, as described by Sri Kavi Muni. So carrying on. In these words of Sri Kavi Muni, it is explained that an advanced devotee becomes overwhelmed with love for the Lord. In that condition, the devotee's heart melts with love, and he manifests various ecstatic symptoms, such as laughing and crying. These are anubhavas that are symptoms or external manifestations of something that's internal. The nature of an advanced devotee is also described in these words. the next verse, text 41. Quote, "A devotee should not see anything as being separate from the Supreme Lord Kṛṣṇa, ether, fire, water, air, earth, the sun, other luminaries, all living beings, the directions, trees, and other plants, the rivers and oceans, whatever the devotee experiences, he should consider to be an expansion of Kṛṣṇa. Thus, seeing everything that exists within creation as the body of the Supreme Lord, Hari, the devotee should offer his sincere respects to the entire expansion of the Lord's body." Paragraph. This kind of devotee sees that all conscious and unconscious living entities, sarva-bhūteṣu, are expansions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, ātmano bhagavan bhavam. The devotee sees, pashyati, all living entities, bhutani, as present in the Supreme Lord's heart, ātmani. In the same way, the Supreme Lord is present in the living entities. A person who sees in this way is the best of the devotees. Bhagavata Uttama, which is the topic. What's the topmost devotee? So, the nature of the advanced devotees of the Lord is described by the goddess of Vraja in the following words. These are the songs of the Gopīs. He's using here the goddess of Vraja. This is text 9 of chapter 35. Quote, "Kṛṣṇa moves about the forest in the company of his friends who very vividly chant the glories of his magnificent deeds. He thus appears just like the Supreme Personality of Godhead, exhibiting inexhaustible opulences. When the cows wander onto the mountain sides and Kṛṣṇa calls out to them with the sound of his flute, the trees and creepers in the forest respond by becoming so luxuriant with fruits and flowers that they seem to be manifesting Lord Vishnu within their hearts. As the branches bend low with the weight, the filaments of the trunks and vines stand erect out of ecstasy of love of God, and both the trees and the creepers pour down a rain of sweet sap. Maddened by the divine honey-like aroma of the tulsi flowers on the garland Kṛṣṇa wears, swarms of bees sing loudly for him. And the most beautiful of all persons, that's Kṛṣṇa, thankfully acknowledges and acclaims their song by taking his flute to his lips and playing it. The charming flute song then steals away the minds of the cranes and swans and other lake-dwelling birds. Indeed, they approach Kṛṣṇa, close their eyes, and, maintaining strict silence, worship him by fixing their consciousness upon him in deep meditation. Paragraph. This verse means that this kind of devotee sees love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavati, as being present in the hearts of all conscious and unconscious living entities. The remainder of this verse is like the previous quote. Thus, aware that all living entities are devotees of the Lord, such an advanced devotee bows down to offer respect to them all. This was also described in Srimad Bhagavatam 11:241. That is the meaning here. Again, going next, this reference, the rivers hearing the sound of Krishna's flute. When the river, the text 15 of chapter 21, Canto 10. When the rivers hear the flute song of Kṛṣṇa, their minds begin to desire him, and thus the flow of their currents is broken, and their waters are agitated, moving around in whirlpools. Then, with the arms of their waves, the rivers embraced Murari's lotus feet and, holding on to them, present offerings of lotus flowers. The Lord's queens speak the following words, same verse, O Kurari, you are lamenting. The inscrutable Supreme Lord is now asleep in the world's night, but you are wide awake, finding it impossible to fall asleep. Is it that, like us, you have had your heart pierced to the core by the lotus-eyed Lord's munificent, smiling, pastime glances? What is described here is not the worldview of the impersonalist, because it ultimately denies the existence of both the Lord and the devotees. The devotees of the Lord consider the impersonalist idea that the individual spirit souls are identical with the Supreme Personality Godhead a grave error and a great offense. In Srimad Bhagavatam, again this quote from Kapila Dev, the manifestation of unadulterated devotional service is exhibited when one's mind is at once attracted to hearing the transcendental name and qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is residing in everyone's heart. Just as the water of the Ganges flows naturally toward the ocean, such devotional ecstasy, uninterrupted by any material condition, flows towards the Supreme Lord. These words describe the advanced devotee of the Lord. They do not describe the impersonalists who think the Supreme has no form. And then the final verse of chapter 2 of Canto 11. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is so kind to the conditioned souls that if they call upon him by speaking his holy name, even unintentionally or unwillingly, the Lord is inclined to destroy innumerable sinful reactions in their hearts. Therefore, when a devotee who has taken shelter of the Lord's lotus feet chants the holy name of Kṛṣṇa with genuine love, the Supreme Personality of Godhead can never give up the heart of such a devotee. One who has thus captured the Supreme Lord within his heart is to be known as a Bhagavata Pradhana, the most exalted devotee of the Lord. Paragraph. This verse must describe the advanced devotee of the Lord, for any other interpretation would contradict the description here of their most exalted qualities. And one more reference, and then we're finished. This is, again, on the same section, 11.245. In fact, everyone is suffering the pangs of separation from Kṛṣṇa, because the conditioned soul imagines that he has no eternal relationship with Kṛṣṇa. He is unable to ascertain that all his miseries are due to this separation. This is Maya, or that which is not. Actually, to think that misery arises from anything other than separation from Kṛṣṇa is to be an illusion. So, when a pure devotee sees living entities suffering within this world, he correctly feels that just as he is suffering because of separation from Kṛṣṇa, all other living beings are also suffering from separation from Kṛṣṇa. The difference is that a pure devotee correctly ascertains the cause of his heartbreak, whereas the conditioned soul, bewildered by Maya, is unable to understand his eternal relationship with Kṛṣṇa. And thus, the unlimited pain arising from neglect of that relationship. Srila Jiva Goswami has quoted the following verse, which illustrates the ecstatic feeling of the topmost devotees of the Lord. This is the text 9, where the goddesses of Vraja speak as follows, quote, "The creepers and trees of the forest, their branches weighted down by rich coverings of flowers and fruits, seemed to manifest Lord Vishnu within their hearts. Exhibiting eruptions of ecstatic love upon their bodies, they poured down rains of honey." So it's an exalted section, and I like this way that Jiva Goswami is taking this explanation, giving us an explanation of, what's going on. Besides, it's like, very sweet to hear, kind of euphoric and a little dreamy, and it's natural. It's scripturally, they're on the topmost platform. Here are some of the symptoms of those who are on that topmost platform. What does it look like? What are the symptoms by which we can understand someone is on that topmost platform? What are they feeling? How are they behaving? How are they relating to animate and inanimate objects? Most exalted position. We have this teaching that we're all familiar with, that sometimes the Uttama Adhikari comes down to the Madhyama position and acts as a Madhyama. So let's say the 6 Goswamis start there. They did that. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did that. The 6 Goswamis did that. Bhaktivinoda Thakur did, our great acharyas, they did that. So their Madhyama function was extending mercy by giving teachings of the internal features of exalted devotion to the world because of great compassion. And Bhaktisiddhanta did like that. Not only his writing style was superlative, super exalted, he demonstrated by his nama vrata of chanting 3 times 64 rounds every day for 9 years that he was beyond varnashram. And then he took sannyas because he was instructed to do so, to preach the message of Krishna consciousness to worldly people, to attract their minds and hearts. And following him, Srila Prabhupada the same, showing at times what his position of consciousness was, but unrelentingly giving a picture by his words and by his conduct of one who's totally dedicated in service to Krishna. Because one who's totally dedicated in service to Krishna, they're utilizing their mind and senses and whatever the assets that Krishna has given them, the intelligence, everything, in Krishna's service. Nothing else. Non-stop. And so these personalities, they're Uttama personalities also, displaying enormous compassion, but in the display of enormous compassion, it's not on the material platform. Speaking, in different languages, different ways of expressing the difference between philanthropy and transcendence. what's transcendental compassion and what's worldly compassion, and how to elevate persons of this world by that transcendental compassion, as opposed to the temporary appearance of charity and activities of sacrifice for others, the selfless work slogan. The Uttama does what Prabhupada did, just keeping it really simple. And we're getting this just appreciation every time I do this, is how fortunate we are to hear the Srimad Bhagavatam, which Prabhupada kindly gave us, and then in addition these commentaries of our acharyas, which are doing, embellishing and expanding, deepening our understanding of what the Bhagavatam is teaching us. How to recognize, just like these 9 questions asked in of the Navayogendras, very elevated. It's not something so different than the questions, the 6 questions that were asked in the first chapter, but it's just going more deeply by persons of a special qualification. So if we go through the Bhagavatam sequentially, we'll get to, the same question being asked again in a deeper, more complete rendering of the same message, it's not a different message. And then right after this section comes Uddhava Gita, which is an expanded version of Bhagavad Gita. And it's, sequentially after all these other things, it's after Krishna's pastimes. Although Uddhava Gita was spoken as part of Krishna's pastimes, that's giving teachings that, looking back upon Krishna's pastimes that are in Canto 10, it's Krishna speaking about what's, the highest of subject matters in a very profound, detailed, intricate way. The Bhagavatam is such a wonderful literature. Life-changing. So let's see if there's some discussion. The lawnmower isn't going this morning, so we can... You have a microphone?
Maharaj, you read, if I am not mistaken, I could not grasp the difference between Brahmagyani and Uttam Adhikari. You said something about that Brahmagyani, they see Kṛṣṇa everywhere. And you said something I could not catch.
Okay, I just was reading, but I'll say it. This isn't Gyan Mishra Bhakti. He's speaking about Brahma Gyan, impersonalists that are really excited, really focused on the knowledge of Brahman. And those that have knowledge of Brahman, their wish, their attainment, their goal is everything is Brahman. To see the Lord everywhere is everything is Brahman. So the point is, these descriptions of the queens and of the Gopīs, it's not Brahmagyan. They're not seeing Brahman everywhere. They're seeing the Lord everywhere. They're seeing the Lord in the heart. They're seeing the trees and creepers, for example, feeling it as if they're feeling the Lord in the heart. So as if, or they actually are, because other commentary says they are. And then the resplendent display, the anubhav, this is how they're expressing themselves. They can't talk, but they're expressing themselves inspired by this transformation of their heart in fruits and flowers and bowing down and standing up. So that's not Brahmagyan. What the queens are seeing, what the gopis are seeing, what the Uttama Adhikari is seeing is not Brahmagyan. It's Uttama Bhakti. That's the distinction. It's a detail to help his reader be clear, because a reader might not be clear. So, is that all right? Okay.
Maharaj, in the beginning of class, you were that in Navajagandhara they were asking some questions like, what is the ultimate?
Why what?
What is the highest benefit for others? So I was thinking that whether the questions which has been asked by Saunaka Rishi and all sages, 6 questions in the to Suta Goswami, is it included inside the Navajagandhara's episode?
Did you follow? Congratulations.
Are the 6 questions that the sages of Naimisharanya asked included in the 9 questions that Nimi asked the Navayogendras?
I'd have to, most likely, yes. I'd have to give some thought to that, but most likely. There's 6 questions and there's 9 questions, and yeah, I just quickly thinking the first 2 questions are in the first question. Yeah, most likely. But you can do some study on your own and see if there's a one-to-one correlation between the 6 questions and the 9 questions. I invite you to do that. It's a good exercise. Anyone else? No. Okay, online. Let's see if there's something online.
Some practitioners of Christianity also claim to experience these symptoms of ecstasy, but I very much doubt that it's connection to Kṛṣṇa they are feeling. Is there any explanation given in our scriptures as to what they are feeling or what forces are acting on their person when they start speaking in tongue, for example?
When they start doing what?
Speaking in tongue.
Oh, I don't know anything about it. And I don't know if our scriptures speak anything about speaking in tongues. However, expressions of ecstasy may come if it's even it's not connected to Kṛṣṇa in his form in Vrindavan, etc., because the personality of Godhead may be manifest to them in a different manner according to their heart's regard for Him. And so expressions of ecstasy is not the same as speaking in tongues. That's not an ecstasy. But there are, as far as I'm aware, there are saints in different traditions, not only Christian tradition, that experience ecstatic symptoms. Now, the whole thing with speaking in tongues, I'm unaware of anything in our scriptures talking about it, and I don't know of anything anywhere written by a Vaishnava, qualified Vaishnava, to explain it. So I'm drawing a blank responding. Go ahead.
Oh, no,
That's
I'm
it.
just listening.
Any other questions?
Yeah, sure. Sri Radhika is asking, the Ishopanishad expresses the same truths you read today in the statement, all forms of incompleteness are experienced due to incomplete knowledge of the complete whole.
Yes. Yes.
Since this understanding is still theoretical,
It's still theoretical.
and the relationship with Kṛṣṇa is not palpable, there is a tendency to seek happiness in relationships, albeit in more mature ways now that don't stifle the other person. How does this theoretical understanding become a palpable experience of a relationship with Kṛṣṇa so that I experience completeness within that relationship?
Keep following the bhakti process in an unfolding, maturing manner, and that experience will be your experience, or any one of us. There's no substitute for purity, in short.
Rupa Vilas Prabhu is asking, so the difference between a Brahmagyani and an Uttama Adhikari is the seeing Brahman versus seeing Bhagavan everywhere?
In simple words, yes. Now, a Brahma Jnani may not see Brahman everywhere. They may just have some notional sense of that. You know, what exactly, because sometimes people ask their question, like, what exactly is a Brahman realized person experiencing? No, don't fudge around, give the exactly. So I can't recall reading a description of what exactly a Brahman realized person is experiencing when they see trees and rivers and people. And are they seeing, what are they seeing? What are they experiencing? There's a Brahman conception, and what they're experiencing, Brahman is everywhere, I guess. I mean, so I don't know what they're experiencing. There's a concept, and the intelligence is fixed in that concept. The mind is fixed in that concept. That's what they're doing. But it's so specifically because there's the concept does not include spiritual senses engaging in the service of the master of the senses. They can't stay there. That's much we know. Whatever it is that they're experiencing, they can't stay there because it's minus the activity of the soul. So I can't say what they're experiencing. Does that address the question?
He hasn't responded.
If Rupa Vilas, if you want to say something further, go ahead.
Acharanishta is asking, when an Uttama Adhikari sees all others also having ecstasy for the Lord, are they imagining or actually seeing a vision of the internal energy?
Are they actually seeing what?
Are they imagining or actually seeing a vision of the internal energy?
Well, I don't know. It's seeing a vision of the internal energy. I don't know where it's describing that in all of what we just read.
And then he says, how could an Uttama see illusion?
I guess it depends on the status of the Uttama. There's Uttama and Madhyama Uttama and Kṛṣṇa Uttamas. So how they see? That's just, when Aristasura is coming, and he's not, part of the internal potency. So how do they see? Oh, Aristasura is coming. So it's a threat, a challenge to them and to Kṛṣṇa. They may see like that. But they're not leaving the internal energy. It's just there's a challenge to the internal energy. The internal, their eternal service to Kṛṣṇa is being challenged. I think one answer that may work for Acharya-nishta is that this nice description that's found in Chaitanya Charitamrita, where Krishnadas Kaviraj is going about in Vrindavan to take blessings from the Vaishnavas to write Chaitanya Charitamrita. And one of the persons he visits is a grand disciple of Gadadhar Pandit, whose name I'm not remembering at the moment, who is a pujari of the Govindaji deity. And the description there is, he doesn't see faults. So there's fault, there's discrepancy when it's the external energy or maya. So he doesn't, it's not, so the explanation is very short, but it's not that he can't see what's what. He can see what's what, but he's not focusing on the fault. He's focusing on the essence, or the spiritual essence of another. Or another way of responding to his question is, how does Kṛṣṇa see? And the Uttama will see as Kṛṣṇa sees, and the Uttama will see, here's this mode, that mode, the other mode, because that's how Kṛṣṇa sees. So it's a display of the modes of nature, which is the inferior energy, or the manifestation of illusion, maya, according to these modes, working under the modes. And that's how the person sees. And then they consider how to help the soul that's by this mode, that mode, the other mode, become elevated, become awakened.
Prakash asks, before being at the Nishta stage, is complete anartha nivritti essential? Is a person who has no anarthas in samadhi, how does that feel?
How does that feel? Good. Ananda. That's it?
So there were two questions previous to that. Is the complete anartha nivritti essential before being in Nishtha?
Is anartha nivritti being complete essential before what?
Before being in Nishtha.
No, it's almost.
And he says, is a person who has no anarthas in samadhi?
Is one who has no anarthas in samadhi.
Yes, that's his question.
Yes, and we should be clear what samadhi means. And it doesn't mean you're just using Prabhupada's phrase, sitting down tightly. But it's engaged in activity, in samadhi.
Uttama Bhakta is asking, from yesterday, if time permits, Gopis' attraction to Kṛṣṇa is transcendental. When they get attracted, breaking social conventions, is there some remote thought or feeling that Kṛṣṇa is in the space of divinity because they won't do it for an ordinary person with extraordinary beauty and skills?
I'm not sure what he's asking. Is he asking? Go ahead and say it.
So, the Gopis won't break social conventions just for any ordinary person who may be good looking. So is there some sense of Krishna's divinity?
No. I mean, there's hints, but that's not what's causing them. It's the attractiveness of Krishna, not divinity of Krishna.
Radha Vallabha is saying, is Uttama Bhakta devotee's vision of seeing everyone and everything as part of the Lord is basis of their deep compassion on the separated living beings?
No. I mean, his question is somewhat related to Acharya Nishta's question. How do they see someone, the Uttama, how do they see someone who's not an Uttama? One of the explanations, they see everyone as, if they're suffering, it's because that's this feeling of being separated from Krishna, or the fact that they're separated from Krishna. And that's their suffering. So, wanting the trees and creepers and thises and that's to feel happy in connection with Krishna, I guess that's one way of saying yes to his question. But they're not like looking down upon to lift up the trees and creepers and the river and the this and the that. They're feeling empathy. They're identifying themselves as feeling like they're feeling. Because that was one of the explanations given earlier. In the material sense, Prabhupada used this phrase, Atmavan manjate jagat. People see, according to their own experience, that others are like them. And the Uttama is in the position of feeling this sense of the importance, the gravity of incomplete connection with the personality of Godhead, the mood of separation, and that's their unhappiness, and everyone is in that position of unhappiness because of that. The connection with Krishna is incomplete. So they wish for them that the connection with Krishna becomes complete, but from another platform altogether than how an ordinary person might see that, how we might see that. It's hard to make the comparison in response to his question. It's a stretch to make that comparison.
Maharaj, when you were speaking about this point, I'm reminded of in the 11th canto, the Avadhuta Brahmana has these 24 entities and he accepts them as a guru because he's appreciating different qualities in them that they have.
Yeah. Pretty exceptional, huh?
Should I read the next one?
I'd like to end, so you do one more and then that's
okay.
it.
This is Amara Mataji's question. We do not hear of display of such blissful ecstatic symptoms in Arjuna or Kunti Devi or many pure devotees in Srimad Bhagavatam. Is it because they are playing a particular role?
Is it because they're what?
Playing a particular role.
Not playing a role. Their absorption is not equal to those who are in residents of Vrindavan. That's all. Not just playing a role. Queen Kunti speaks of the absorption of Mother Yasoda, and it's just like unfathomable for her. So it's not to say that Queen Kunti is something short of a pure devotee, but she's marveling at the kind of love that Yasoda has. So it's degree of absorption that we've been hearing repeatedly. Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki